Hello and welcome back to my craft room. I've got a new little project today. I think it will only take me a day or so to do, and this is an extra bit of fun because it's a collaboration with Susie of SuzieQMakes. I will link to Susie below. You'll know Susie very well if you belong to our Discord community or the Arty Farty Annie group on Facebook, and if you haven't checked out her channel yet, please go and do so because she's got so much inspiration on there. Like me, she enjoys all kinds of different arts and crafts, and she's always coming up with something new and inspiring. This one came about because quite recently, a couple of live streams ago, we do a live stream on the first Saturday of every month, our sort of monthly get together for the community really. And sometimes we have a little giveaway, and this time the prize was a little pack. I haven't got one of the boxes here. I had some little boxes, just sort of little boxes this size, about that deep, and I said I would fill one of the boxes with fabric scraps for slow stitching, and I would pick out colours to suit whoever won. So Helen, Helen, so she's Churn-Dash on in the Discord community. Helen won, and she gave me the prompt. She gave me to pick out the colours for her was sky, sea and sand, which I thought was such a lovely prompt. Anyway, I pulled out loads of stuff, ended up with enough to fill 4 of these little boxes, so I sent Helen hers. I kept one myself, and the next live stream I did the other 2 as giveaways. Susie Q won one of them, and the other one went to Sandy in Australia. So Susie said, why don't we make a little mini collaboration out of it? So what we're going to do is Susie and I have each got the identical, the packs were absolutely as identical as you can get. And let's do a little collaboration. So we've agreed we're going to do 3 projects each in 3 separate videos. We'll release them at the same time so people can nip back and forth and see what each of us has come up with. I'm really excited to see. I always love when you give a group of people exactly the same supplies and then see what different things they come up with. So Helen and Sandy, if you're watching this, I have messaged them as well. If you're watching this and you would like to join in, please do. If you post pictures of whatever projects you make in either the Discord community or in the Facebook group, and then Susie and I can share pictures of what you 2 have made with the same kit in our videos as well, which would be really fun. So let me show you what I've got to play with and the project I'm going to start on today. I had lots of ideas, but I've settled on 3. I think these are going to be the 3 that will go into my Arty Farty pod. So just recently we launched the Arty Farty Pods project, which is it's a time capsule, but it's got an Arty Farty spin on it. I'm not going to go on about it now because that's not what this video is about, but I'm going to leave a link to the website. My son Tom and I, TTK in Discord, spent a long time putting together a fun little website, and we will be adding to it as time goes on. There are printables on there, there's a link to a video all about it, and there's also a secret video tutorial which isn't listed anywhere on my channel. You can only get to it by the link in that website, and that's a tutorial to make a little mini book to go inside your pod. So I will leave a link to that. But what I'm thinking is, I love so many different arts and crafts. I have so many favourites. It's been really hard to choose. I won't have a problem with telling my story and putting in all the other bits and pieces and things, but choosing which crafts to put in is quite tricky. So I think maybe the 3 things I make for this little collaboration might be what goes into my pod, because part of the idea of the pods, apart from celebrating the hobbies and arts and crafts that we love, it's also about celebrating our community, and the fact that this has been very much a kind of collaboration that has come about because of the community, I think. Yeah, so I think, all being well, if these go okay, these are going to be what go into my Arty Farty pod. So as I say, I will leave a link to that, and you can find out all about it if you'd like to join in. Open to anyone, completely free to join, take your own time, no rules, but lots of ideas and tips and advice if you would like them. Okay, let's go in. I'll go to my desk now. Here are the fabric scraps that I put together. Now I've put these ones on the top to one side to keep them for a minute. So I went for a mixture of all kinds of colours of sand and all colours of the sea and sky, from blues through to greys. And I tried to find lots of different textures, some of them quite tiny pieces like that, some slightly larger. But I think with slow stitching projects, I personally would rather have more variety of smaller pieces. It just works better with slow stitching type projects, and you know, if I need a bigger backing piece, I've always got something I can use. So yeah, they're quite small pieces, lots of different textures. I have got 3 ideas I've settled on. The one I'm going to start on today, which I'll tell you about in a minute. The other are a little 3-dimensional seagull, seated seagull. It's going to be a scavenger gull, because I'm trying to stick with the sun, with the sky, sea and sand theme. So he's a scavenger gull. He's going to have a little bag to put all the stuff he's been scavenging in, other people's chips, stuff like that. And then I'm going to I've got this project as well, and then with what's left, I'm going to turn it into a series of little stitched collaged cards. I'm putting all of these to one side. I will take what I need for the seagull from there. Susie and I have agreed that we'll use mainly what's in the packs, but obviously we'll need to add stuffing. We can also add things like beads and paints and glue and other stuff like that, but primarily we want the materials to be what's in the pack, and we want to try and use them all up if we can. What am I going to do today? I'm going to be inspired. I have a love of pebbles. I don't know about you, but I think a lot of people are the same. Whenever you go to the beach, I love picking up pebbles and shells and things. I quite often will bring one home. I love this one. It feels beautiful in my hand. I've got this one here, this little polished stone that I love to feel. This Jackie sent me this little kind of a worry stone. I like to keep it in my pocket. I should be when I go off next weekend on my travels. I'm going down to Sussex for the bazaar event, which I'm hugely looking forward to, but I get really nervous travelling. This will probably be in my pocket. I love just a round pebble like this also. I just love them. And I recently bought some flat ones that is to make pattern weights out of, and I'm going to use one of these, this one, for this project. What I want to do is I know it sounds a bit mad, but I'm hoping it's going to work. I'm going to take inspiration from these pebbles that you get with these kind of stripes in, like this one, and you can see the different textures in there as well as the different colours. It just feels so lovely. And sometimes the lines, they'll have like white lines on them that are kind of raised, not just white lines, but quite often they are white lines. They're sort of raised, you know, like parts of the pebble have worn away more than others, so it leaves these kind of lines standing proud of the main surface, that kind of thing. So I'm taking inspiration from all that. Let me quickly show you some photos I was looking at. There's some more examples of the kind of thing I've got in my mind. There's these ones are the I've got those stripes on that I'm talking about. That one actually. That one's got a very pronounced stripe of a kind of pinky colour along there. Oh, if I click on that, I go into Pinterest and I get all confused and I get sucked in, so I'm not going to click on it. So yeah, I've had a look at a few different kind of striated stones. I like the patterns on these shiny ones, but I don't like the shininess. And they have got those kind of different shades of grey and the sort of sandy colours in there, haven't they? So bearing all of that in mind, I've got my scribble paper there in case I need to scribble anything down. I've pulled out just these 3 pieces of fabric, and I'd also put this little, just a tiny piece of this in just because it made me think of clouds, so the sky thing. So I think what I'm going to do is wrap my stone first of all in this fleece and just roughly sort of stitch it. That would just about, maybe I'd be better off to go around that way. I'll just sort of stitch it in place just to give it a little bit of padding all over, because I think when I come to stitch into it later I'll be glad of that. So that's going to be my first job. And then I've got these 3 pieces of fabric. I pulled this one out because it's got a bit of a stretch to it in that direction. So I'm thinking if I cut that into 2, use that to wrap around just the ends, because I think this is going to be, I want to try and get it reasonably smooth. Not hugely bothered because a lot of those stones had kind of crinkles and things in that I was looking at. But with this sort of slight stretch to the fabric, it will enable me to get a reasonably smooth end. And then, so imagine that's been smoothed over there a bit. And then I will add a stripe of this, and then a stripe of that. Not all in like regular stripes, because they go at sort of funny angles, don't they? Yeah. And I will create this kind of striated pebble effect. Stitch it all around. There will be a point somewhere I need to decide if it's going to be along the back or at the sides, or if I'm just going to make it a really obvious stitched line. I'm just going to make this up as I go along. Once I've got them all the sort of stripes, main stripes in place, then I'm going to do just a little bit of simple embroidery stitching over the top. Probably things like a whipped back stitch and a whipped chain stitch to get different thicknesses of a kind of raised line on it. And it will just be a little decorative fabric covered stitched into pebble to use as a little paperweight on my desk, or if I really enjoy doing it, I could, all of these that I had planned to paint on, I could cover with fabric and do it. And I think if the idea works out, I'd quite like to try it in really bright colours and things, not necessarily realistic colours like this as well, but we'll see how it goes. And then I've pulled this out to use for all of the projects. They're all the right kind of colours. These just came in amongst a parcel of things that somebody sent me. I'm sorry, I can't remember who now. I've been so spoilt rotten with parcels of things over these. I can't remember who, but these have been carefully stashed away, waiting for the right project to come along. It might have been Jen. Now is their time to shine. First things first, I'm going to cover this pebble with this fleecy fabric. Beautiful combinations of colours these, aren't they? I wonder what it was for originally. It looks like it was for one of those cross-stitch kits or something. Okay, I'm going to just take this sort of fairly neutral colour one. It really doesn't matter at this stage because you're not going to see it. I'm just going to use one strand of it to start with. Little needle book. Made this out of bizarre scraps. Let's just use this big fat chunky needle. I love a big fat chunky needle. People have asked from time to time why I use such a big needle. It's partly because sometimes I struggle to hold and work with a small needle. Also because it makes it easier for you to see what I'm doing on camera. And really, for the kind of stitching I usually do, I don't need it to be small and delicate, and it is quite nice to have a long shaft to the needle, so if I'm doing a lot of straight stitching, which I love to do, I can pick up lots of stitches at the same time. So I think what I'm going to do is just wrap this around, and then I can just close up the ends. So okay, this doesn't have to be tidy, and this is just a really lightweight little piece of wadding that I happen to have. Batting, you could use cotton batting, you could use a piece of felt. I just think it will benefit from that little bit of padding. I think things like t-shirt yarns might be quite fun to try this with. If I'll see how this goes. Some of those brightly coloured stretch knits that I got from Megan Crook could work. Just the slight stretch might really help with the covering, And once I've got the basic thing covered, I could do strips of any kind of lace or braid or whatever, cord, fibre, scraps of fibres could be fun, just couched. In fact, now I've thought of that, I might have to, we did say we could add trims and things. Little scraps of fibre wrapped around and couched down could be fun, couldn't it? I think it's one of the reasons that I love the challenge of this kind of thing, where you get a certain kit of materials, a certain set of materials to use, and you just have to get inventive with how you're going to use them. And you might never set out and think, oh, I want to cover a stone. But because you've got those things there and you've got that theme, it just makes your head kind of go that way and come up with the ideas. Creative challenges are so good for us, So I'm just folding that under as I go, and rather haphazardly stitching it down just to give me a reasonably smooth outline. Got just about enough, I think, to cover this stone nicely. I know it seems like a bit of a strange thing to do, but once you get these ideas in your head, you just have to try them sometimes, don't you? Okay, I'm going to carry on. I need to thread up another piece of thread now. I'm just going to rethread and do the same at this end, and then I'll be back. Right, I've finished doing that. It's kind of patchy, but I don't think it's going to matter. I've kept the basic shape of it. Now I'm going to cut. I've only got this small piece of this. Scissors are magnetic. I've only got a small piece of this, so stretch is going that way. I'm going to cut it in half this way, put a piece over it, over each end, and smooth it down as best I can to just cover each end. Yeah, I'm going to put it diagonally like that. I'm just going to hold that down as I go and just run a line of straight stitching all around just to tack it into place. This still isn't going to show this stitching, so I'll just go with this colour again. So if I didn't, I can stitch it into that that wadding that I've added. If I didn't have that, they wouldn't be able to do that, would I? I'd have to just hope that I could kind of gather it around and it would stay put. I'm hoping eventually it will kind of, all the different pieces will hold each other together. It works in my head. It's like with all of these things, and I've never tried them before. In my head it works, and we get to find out as I go along. So I'm going to get this down here as close to the edge of it as I can go. Make a double stitch, put that back through that loop to make a knot, holding this down tight, and I'm just going to do a series of small running stitches. I'm not sure how far up the next stripe is going to come, so I'm keeping it close to this edge, trying to keep my options open. So I'll go around and do all of that once, and then perhaps go around and do another line of stitching as well, just to make sure it's nice and secure. I'll do that both ends, and then I'm going to add my first stripe of this in, so I'll be back when I'm ready to do that. I finished doing that. Don't care about what the middle looks like because that's all going to be covered anyway, but I've managed to get the very ends as smooth as I can. So then I started cutting a stripe of this. I really like that fringy kind of dark rusty colour edge. I think that will add to it as well, so I'm going to keep that. And what I'm going to do is like wrap this. I'm going to pull it really tight, because then hopefully if it's pulled really tight in the middle, it won't end up with too much kind of, too much extra volume around this bit. Yeah, I think that'll work. I don't think there's any way around the fact that I'm going to have a join at the back. You know, that's just going to happen, isn't it, somewhere? So I'm not going to worry about it. Just wondering if, I mean, I could double it over there and do a ladder stitch so I've got a nice neat seam like that, or I could just leave the edges raw. Just quite like the look of the raw edges. I don't need it to be tidy as such, but I do want to preserve the smooth kind of rounded shape of the pebble. I can snip that off now, actually. Get rid of that. Most of this under here, sort of from there on, isn't really going to show anyway. It might have been better to have started at this end, I don't know. I just kind of felt like I wanted to get that edge down. I have changed the thread colour now, so it's more in keep. It's like a sort of honey colour, sort of tones with this fabric a little more. Another advantage of having these great big long needles is you can do stuff like this and get. I could take this down here and come all the way back up there really easily to just finish off up there. And now I think I'm going to run a line of small straight stitches all the way around, kind of around the edge about there, just parallel with the edge. Partly to make it more secure, and partly because it would just slightly nip that in. It might even need to be 2 lines of straight stitches, we'll see. So I'm sort of now stitching into the layer underneath a little bit as well. unusual for me to work with neutral colours, but I'm quite enjoying them for a change. Usually go for a lot of bright colours. I love rainbow colours. I love to put pink and orange and teal and green together. Splashy yellow. Black and white contrast, you know. A bit leery really, a bit lime green. So this is a nice little change for me. It's a really nice theme. If I had to pick a keyword for my 3 projects, it would be beachcombing, I think. And you know, I enjoyed that so much, I'm going to go on and do another line around just below it. I think for the next stripe of colour it will be this one, and I might just turn the edges in. I'll tear a thin strip and fold the edges in so I get quite a narrow stripe like that. I think that's kind of where I'm going. I don't just want it to look like stripes, I want it to be striations, so I don't necessarily want them to be the same width all the way down. I don't want them to look like evenly placed straight even stripes like a bee or something. So yeah, I'll be back when I come to that point. I've cut a little strip here. I've toyed with the idea of leaving this frayed as well, but I want a bit of difference, I think, so I'm going to make this look more like one of those kind of smooth, hard kind of bits you get in pebble sometimes, where you get that slightly different texture. It's slightly prouder of the surface, it's sort of smoother around the edges, you know. It's amazing how many different textures you can get in one little pebble sometimes. So I've sort of turned the edges in on this all the way down. I didn't want it to be a straight stripe, but I'm not going to put it on straight. I'm going to kind of do this with it. Join them together at the back. I can't decide whether to make all my joins end up in that one area or stagger them. I think I'll make them in that one area, probably-ish. So I will do that and make it so that they meet up there, so that each end is about the same width, so they join together nicely. And I'll just do a little kind of a ladder stitch to join this onto this to start with, but I may end up doing some more fancy stitching over the top of it. I think I want to get the stripes on and then I'll do some more decorative stitching over. I don't want all the stripes to be the same thickness, and some of the stripes I can create just with thread. I'll do a chain stitch and couch them and whip them, and I might see if I've got some fibre that I can couch down as well. I just want to make sure that I don't end up, you know, that I make the lines very irregular, so I think the next one needs to be quite thin. It's just going to be more of the same now. I'm going to get this covered with the stripes of fabric, and then when I'm ready to add a bit more decorative stitching, then I'll come back, because that'll be something different for you to look at. Just popping back quickly just to show you how that went on. It kind of roughly tagged on really, and I think what I will probably end up doing is more definite, deliberate looking stitching down there, some chunky couched chain stitch to give a bit of texture. I've torn off another strip here, folded the ends in and folded it again, because what I'm thinking is that will help to give me some extra texture there, and I'm gonna stitch them on like that. I've got another piece of this. I'll either use this little short piece, I might use this longer bit, but if I don't need it I'll keep it, because it might be good for part of the seagull, I'm thinking. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep on covering this with the stripes, And another idea I just experimented with, rather than go and look for some extra fibres, I thought, I've got all of this thread I've pulled out. If I get a couple of thicknesses of this embroidery thread in whichever colour I want to do, wrap it round even 3 or 4 times, make a big thick kind of almost cord, I can then couch that down. So you can see the kind of textures I'm going for there. And to me, it's starting to look, in my mind's eye, a bit like one of those brown pebbles you might pick up at the beach, and then I can just have fun stitching away on it. So yeah, I just wanted to come back and show you kind of what I'm aiming at doing there, and then I'll come back when I get to the stitching bit. A bit more interesting to watch. Little quick look at how I'm actually attaching the pieces, in case anybody's wondering. I'm actually finding it easiest to just take tiny stitches across like that, go underneath the fabric, come up a little bit further along, and then go back in again. So I'm coming up in that dark brown colour and going across and going down into lighter colour. I shall do that all the way along, and as I go I'm putting this tight, keeping that in place. Where I need to, I'm just using my needle to just tuck the edges under. On this piece I haven't needed to, but I did on that one. So yeah, just sort of come and quickly show you that in case anybody's wondering. Right, I've made quite a lot of progress there. I've finished putting all my strips of fabric on. I rolled this one back to give a little bit of a different texture, left this one fringy, and I've done a sort of blanket stitch over that to fix it down and to sort of blend it into there. I've wrapped thread around here and here, so I just sort of fastened the thread off there, wrapped it round and round, and then fastened it back there again. So you know the back is going to be a bit of a mess, but you know I always quite like my messy backsides anyway. And time I've done all the stitching over it, it might be that the messiness is kind of lost in that anyway. I also had an experiment with making the tiniest possible Suffolk puff, thinking wouldn't it be fun to have a couple of barnacles on my rock, but I think it's just too big, so that's not going to work. But if I ever make a bigger one, that would be quite a fun idea, because that does make quite a nice little barnacle looking thing. Then I went and dug out these beads, and I really fancy the idea of having a cluster of beads like that, but stitched over a lot so that it would create a kind of almost like you can see there we go, kind of almost like that. So you wouldn't really end up seeing the bead, you'd see these little kind of crusty craters, so it would look like kind of tiny barnacles. But I think that's going to be too difficult to do on here now that it's on the stone, so I'm going to remember that idea, because if I do another one, I have quite enjoyed this. I think I might like to do a whole bowl full of them. What I would do is take a piece of fabric first, stitch the little beads, any other kinds of beads would work as well, onto this first before wrapping it round, because it's just going to be too difficult to do on there. But yeah, so if anybody out there fancies trying this, have an experiment with that. I think that'd be really fun. So now I'm just going to start my slow stitching, and I think I'm going to work my way from one end of my pebble to the other. I think to give this a little bit of interesting texture, I could just leave it smooth. I might just leave that end smooth, I don't know, but because there's a little bit of puckeriness here, I'm going to cover this with little tiny seed stitches. And I have said that I would sort of explain what stitches I'm using as I go along, because a few people who are just beginning their slow stitching journey have said they would appreciate being able to see how you make the stitches. So this one's just called seed stitch, and I'll start in the back here where this is. I can lose the end of the thread. I'm just going to bring it out there, you're not going to see it. I'll get rid of that end later. I'm just going to do myself a little double stitch to anchor it. Oops, I meant to put my needle back through the loop then. There we go, just put my needle through the loop before I pull it tight, just to make a little knot. And now I'm just going to work my way over this whole area of my little pebble. Normally with the seed stitch I tend to do the stitches about this big, and usually you'd make them all roughly the same size, and the thing is that they all go, they're scattered, they're random, they're in all different directions. I actually find it quite difficult to be random. And I've also seen people do a really pretty effect. One of the squares I got sent, they'd actually done pairs of them, which look quite nice as well. I think because I want this to kind of look textural, like it might be stone, like kind of slightly pitted stone, I'm going to make my little seed stitches very, very small, smaller than I usually would. So actually the direction of them will hardly even show because the stitches are so small. It's just that all over kind of texture. I think by the time I've done that it will sort of disguise the fact that I've got a little bit of puckering going on where I've stretched the fabric over the stone. So yeah, these are so small, you're not really gonna, the direction barely matters, but it'll just add a bit of interest to that area of the stone. Okay, so I'm just going to do that all over that area, and then I'll be back for the next bit. Finished doing my little seed stitching all over there, and I'm going to carry on working across this way. So I've got my needle threaded up with that sort of honey coloured thread, 2 strands of it this time. I'm going in here where all the kind of messy bit is anyway. I've put a knot to stop the thread coming through, but now I'm just going to do a double stitch, make a little knot, and then a bit later on I can cut that knotted bit off. I'm just going to add a really simple overstitch now, just a more definite looking stitching. There we go. So that's what that's going to look like. And now I'm going to work my way around this whole section till I come back around the other side, and I'll be back again. I finished my a little overstitch all the way around there, and now I'm going to just couch this down, but I think I'm actually going to do like a blanket stitch around it, this little stripe of embroidery floss that I've wrapped around and fastened off at the back. So I'm going to do a blanket stitch all around, and then I'll catch in these loose ends when I come back. So I'm going to work up this way all the way around, and I'll catch in the loose ends when I get back to here. So I'm just going to make a normal blanket stitch. I'm trying to show how I'm doing this for the benefit of new stitchers, like I was saying earlier on. Such a useful stitch, a blanket stitch. You can use it in so many different ways. I'm going to put these fairly close together, I think, this time. If you want to get some ideas for lots of different types of stitches, whether you're new to stitching or you've been stitching for years, check out Create and Craft with Christine's Dictionary of Stitches. Very inspiring. I'm hoping you can see what I'm doing there. Just taking just grabbing a little tiny bit of the fabric. Mostly what I'm doing is wrapping that bundle of thread together with my blanket stitch. It's kind of a bit like a macrame knot as well. There we go. Let's see if I can get that a bit closer so you can see. There we go. So now I'm going to work all the way around and do that. Really enjoying this. I'm going to do more of these. I finished going all the way around there, and I did a little whip stitch down here, but I feel like that's not enough. Not a whip stitch, kind of an overstitch. I feel like that's not enough, so what I'm going to do now is go all along this edge with a back stitch and then whip it. So start off here, I've put a knot there, I'll catch that end in when I come back round again. and I'm just going to do a back stitch. I'm doing a Christine style back stitch. I nearly always do it that way now. I'm just coming back to where I started, and now I'm going to, I think I've got enough thread left, hopefully. I'm just going to whip the stitch that I've already made. So I'm just coming up where I first started, and I'm going to start using the wrong end of the needle now, and I'm going to take my thread underneath that stitch I made already. I'll come back and go right to left every time. Doesn't matter which way you go, but just do the same way every time. I'm not going to the fabric this time, I'm just going under the stitch, which is why I'm using the wrong end of the needles. That'll just let me just pick up and go under that stitch rather than going into the fabric. And this will just sort of thicken up and define the line. I'm going to have to go point end first with this one because that's a little bit awkward. Yeah, as I go over the edges it's a little bit tricky, so just going to point out for that. And I've worked my way around, just coming back to the beginning now, and I'm going to make sure I catch that loose end in with my whipping. There we go, just to tidy it all up a bit. Take the thread out underneath the layers, snip that end. There we go. So it's just giving another little line. It's quite subtle, but it's just another little bit of texture and interest there. But now I'm going to couch down this bundle of thread here. So let's pick that colour out again. Right, I'll start myself off with a couple of stitches there, just to get it all secure. And now I'm just going to move my just take some more stitches, try and keep the distance apart the same so that the angle stays the same every time, and I'm just taking a little tiny stitch into the fabric, wrapping the thread around the bundle of threads that I've laid down. I could make the stitch go straight across, but I quite like how this is looking. Okay, so now I'm going to work around and do that, and then I think I'm only going to do one more line of stitching after this, maybe two. I think I want to do some whipped chain stitch. I'll probably put that along here. And I might decide I want to do another overstitch over this, but I'm not sure. Probably not. At the moment I feel not. So yeah, just this one and one more line of stitching and I'm done. Very happy with this, really enjoying it. And I'm now thinking I would love to do something really colourful combinations as well. I don't think I mean, it doesn't look like, you know, one of those stripy stones that I took my inspiration from, but I love how it does look. I just, yeah, and I'm really enjoying the whole process. Sorry, I just realised I left the fan on the last couple of clips. Sorry about that, turned it off now. Yeah, I finished couching this down. So I'm loving all the different textures I've got going on here now. I'm just going to do one last thing, just a line of chain stitching along here, which I will then whip. Start my thread off with a knot like before. I'm going to start my chain stitch. I'm just going to follow along the line of where I've folded that fabric back to, just sort of keep it parallel to that. I'm trying to sort of show how I'm doing the stitches, but I'm not doing a sort of in-depth explanation of how I'm doing them each time. I think I've picked the wrong place to do that. I'm going to take that out because I'm now going to end up covering up my fringy bit there, which I don't want to do. So I'm going to take that out, start my chain stitch again, and just keep it close all the way along there. And then I'm going to whip it just the same as I did the back stitch. So I'm going to do that in a minute, come back and show you the finished thing. I think I'm done then for now. Last little bit, I decided I'd do another line of just straight stitching down there, and I'm just using up the last bit of thread I've got on my needle to go around this section as well. Definitely would be nice to add some beads, or yeah, make some little Suffolk puff barnacles and just, you know, stitch them on before applying the fabric, before wrapping the fabric around the stone. I definitely will try that again. And I am now thinking I'd love to make a whole rainbow of colourful stones as well. But yeah, even just doing them in all the, you know, shades of grey and brown and reds and all those colours that stones are naturally, all in a little bowl. That would look really cute. Okay, let's just fasten off there. Use my thread underneath. And make sure I don't lose my needles. Really happy with that for my first little project for this collaboration. It is a little bit more messy on the back, but not so as I mind it. And I think, yeah, this is, oh, it's very tactile. I think it would work quite well as pattern weights actually. Perhaps I could just do a whole set as my pattern weights. Really happy with that. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Maybe got inspired by that. What do you think? Let me know what you think. Have you ever tried anything like this? I have seen them before. One thing I have seen people do that I'm intrigued by is when they get stones and weave thread around them, silk threads. Beautiful patterns of silk threads kind of woven and darned into and stuff. It looks amazing. But it wouldn't have worked for this because the idea was for using up this using the scraps in this pack, but it is something I'd like to have a go at another time, maybe with some of these threads that I've got here. Whatever I end up with left over, perhaps I'll try that as well. Okay, thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to check out, I will link to Susie's channel here as well. If I've got the link for her first video that she's putting out for this collaboration, I'll put that as well, but otherwise I'll just put the link to her channel and I'm sure you'll find it. So do check her out. Her channel's brilliant. She's really inspiring and just a lovely lady. I've been chatting to her for quite a long time now, and we've never met up in person yet, but yeah, we've become really good friends, so it's lovely to do this with her. So I have 2 more to do. I don't know which one to do next. It'll either be, I think I'll do the seagull next, and then I'll use up everything I've got left to make a series of little cards. Thanks very much again for joining me today, and I'll see you again really soon.